Real quickly, Damian Pekacic here. I'm coming out of Houston, Texas. I have the honor of introducing a spectacular human being. He's got almost as much energy as me. Well, maybe a little bit more. He's won a Pure Energy Award. He's been in the Success from Home magazine. He's an executive consultant. He comes out of the wonderful, big, awesome state of Texas, San Angelo, in fact, over there in West Texas. And I hope you guys are ready for the power and the energy that you're going to feel from my man, Jordan Buckingham. Jordan, you there?
All right. I am unmuted. Can you hear me, Damian?
I hear you, man.
All righty, Damian, thank you so much for bringing me on. Guys, I am super fired up to be here. My name is Jordan Buckingham. I'm an executive consultant with this incredible company that many of you have just seen the Energy 526 and EnergyGoldRush videos on that are going to allow you to see what Ambit is and the compensation plan. So I'm super excited to be the last speaker of the evening. Hopefully some of you have just seen the presentation for the first time and you're considering doing this maybe on a part-time basis, maybe some people on a full-time basis, depending on where you are. And I want to tell you that this thing has been absolutely incredible for me. So what I'd like to do is start with just my story and basically what's happened to me with this opportunity, and then tell you about some things that have just shifted, just moved. They're going to make things absolutely explode for all of us. So first off, like I said, my name is Jordan Buckingham. When I found out about Ambit Energy, I was serving tables at Joe's Crab Shack. I brought people their food. I didn't have any credibility with anyone in my life. On top of that, at the time, there were just a few Ambit markets open, and I had moved to Texas from Tennessee. So I knew nobody in the state of Texas. I really didn't have a written list of people that I could contact. I was in college at the time getting a petroleum engineering degree, but for all intents and purposes, I was a dead broke college student that was just trying to figure out the way things worked. I didn't know a single person in Texas. And finally, to put icing on the cake, the market that I had moved into inside of Texas was what we like to call a co-op, meaning you can't actually have Ambit Energy service in the market where I was living. So if you want to talk about the cards being stacked against somebody, broke and has no money, no influence with anybody in their lives, don't know a single person in one of our Ambit markets, and living currently in a non-deregulated area, then you could definitely stack them against me. But one thing that I did have was drive and desire to succeed. And I saw this opportunity. And when I first saw it, my dad called me one day and said, "Son, I found something that's going to make us a lot of money." Whenever I found out about Jerry Thompson Jr. and who he was, and I found out about Chris Chambliss and who he was, I absolutely got my mind blown, because I was like, these guys are set out to become the finest and most respected retail energy provider in America. They're giving me, this guy that brings people their food, an opportunity to capitalize on what's going to be the greatest deregulation in history and the greatest redistribution of wealth we're ever going to see in American or global history. They're giving a guy like me an opportunity to do that. And you know what? When something like that comes across my plate, I got to act on it. And I've just got to figure out how this works. Because all I knew was I did not want to look up 5 years, 10 years later, knowing that that opportunity had been presented to me and I didn't capitalize on it. So guys, I got started. I was in college. I was doing this on a very part-time basis, in addition to a very demanding engineering curriculum at the University of Texas at Austin and serving tables. But I was able to get a little bit of traction. I promoted twice in the compensation plan, like you saw in the EnergyGoldRush 15-minute compensation overview. And I had promoted twice, so I was excited. I mean, things were working. I had made some money. And then I graduated from college. When I graduated from college, something interesting happened. I looked at my student debt portfolio that I had brought up, and I realized that I had racked up over $75,000 in student debt whenever I had gone to UT. And I was like, you know, I was a little crushed coming out of school, because that's like a mortgage. That's like not a Bentley payment, but certainly a Mercedes-Benz or a BMW payment. And I didn't have a BMW or a Mercedes sitting in my driveway from me. You know what I'm saying? So guys, I just decided I didn't want to live with that debt my whole life. And at that point, I got serious about my Ambit Energy business as a way to create a part-time income that would create a full-time sustainable income that would pay my monthly bills. So ultimately, I just started working on a 5-10 hour a week basis. in addition to a 60-hour petroleum engineering work week, I would find time on my lunch break. I would find time whenever I had service on a drilling rig and I had a little bit of time to myself. I would make a few calls. I would promote to my team, and I would, basically just get out there and do whatever I had to do to succeed. And ultimately, guys, things started working for me. I was able to buy my first home, beautiful 3-bed, 2-bath home in San Angelo, Texas, and the first mortgage that I ever paid in my life. And all the expenses associated with that new home, taxes, insurance, all the utilities, all the internet and everything, I paid with the part-time money that I made in Ambit Energy that month. And I was just like, whoa, this is actually working. So fast forward 24 months, I completely annihilated that $75,000 in student debt, and I made it completely go away. So now I'm looking at my bills, and I was looking at my Ambit income, and I was like, oh my God, this could be a freedom vehicle for me if I would treat it more seriously. Like I said, at the time, I was working 60, 70 hours as a petroleum engineer, doing this very, very part-time. So I just buckled down a little bit harder, and I hit the position where I am now as an executive consultant. And guys, as an executive consultant, my weekly paychecks with Ambit Energy, just from the coding bonuses that were coming to me, were exceeding my mortgage. I looked up, I had more money coming into me than I had going out in my bills just for my Ambit Energy business part-time, and I was financially free. So at the age of 28 years old, I don't know if you've ever gotten to do this in your life, but I can tell you it's really liberating, especially whenever you've been working a lot of hours and a lot of time. But I got to type up and sign a resignation letter on a strong 6-figure income as a petroleum engineer to walk away and build my Ambit business full time. And ironically, today is the 17th. It was the 19th of January, 2 years ago, that I signed that resignation letter. And guys, what's amazing is my Ambit income has been sustainable. I've been able to live my life. I've been able to travel the world. I've been able to go on all these amazing vacations and excursions with my beautiful fiance that I'm about to marry in Cabo in May, on May 26th. And it's just been an absolute dream. It's been a total, incredible ride for me. Just thinking that a few years ago, I was $75,000 in student debt. My drive to get out of that debt with this business built a portfolio that allowed me to be financially free. And now I've got a residual income stream with Ambit Energy that pays all my bills. And my life is crazy. It's absolutely off the chain. So I just want to really share that excitement, that intensity with you guys tonight to let you know that this is possible. It's one of those things that will absolutely work if you let it. But what I really got out of the deal, because I'm an engineer, I kind of like numbers rolling in my head. And what really got me was this, and this is what I want to finish out with as we kind of globally talk about what's going on in Ambit Energy right now. But there are some incredible things happening. And the very first thing that I found whenever I saw this opportunity was I saw Jerry Thompson Jr. and I saw Chris Chambliss. Jerry Thompson Jr. is the grandson of the guy that founded 7-Eleven. Okay, they have massive blueprint in their head how to build a billion-dollar company, and they privately held that company for over 80 years before they released it and sold it back in the 80s. But Japan was a country that actually bought that 7-Eleven, which will come back up in a second. Chris Chambliss was the CMO of a company called Excel Telecommunications that hit $1 billion in annual revenue faster than most companies had ever done it without merger and acquisition back in the 90s. So he drives the marketing arm. You've got Jerry Thompson with 7-Eleven. You've got Chris Chambliss, both of them having billion-dollar experience with their experience and their families. And they came together and merged and created Ambit Energy. And out in the field, we like to know what's going on. We get excited about new announcements. We get excited about new markets. We get excited about things that come down the pike. But for the most part, they don't tell us in advance what's going to be happening. So whenever we find out about things at corporate events and such, it's usually it's kind of a surprise to all of us. And so we just had our annual event called Simulcast just a couple of days ago on Saturday. And we got our whole world rocked. I'm going to tell you why. Right now, Ambit has access to a little bit over 70 million potential customers across the United States. It's in 16 different states across the U.S. And there's a pretty significant amount of annual revenue that we can go after, about a little over $100 billion in annual revenue that we can go after. But our world just got rocked at this simulcast because, in my opinion, with the customer base that we already have established, or the ability, the customer profile that we have the ability to go after, the revenue that we have the ability to go after, any single person in any one of our current markets can make over $1 million in Ambit Energy. And that's just totally straight up. I believe that with the market profiles, the number of customers that are available, the amount of revenue that are in those markets, you could pick a state and you can go make $1 million there. It's totally possible. But right now, Ambit has just made an announcement about an expansion that just blew all of our minds. We are literally jumping an ocean, and we're about to tear into a brand new market, which is going to be Japan. And what's incredible about Japan is the way that deregulation is shaking out inside of the US is it's basically deregulating state by state by state based on governments and state governments, you know. So basically deregulation happened federally. They mandated it and said, all right, you guys can deregulate it if you choose to, but it's up to the states on a state by state basis, which is why Ambit is now in 16 states with a little bit of back history coming up. But what's amazing is the way that Ambit pursued those markets was, first, we just had the Texas market. We didn't have any other states. We didn't have New York. We didn't have Illinois. We didn't have Ohio. We didn't have all these other different markets that we could take advantage of. So it was systematic expansion over a 10-year period of time, state by state by state, that allowed Ambit to be in the 16 different states that it's in right now, and allows us the opportunity that we have today inside of the United States. But what's incredible about Japan is whenever they deregulated it, they basically deregulated the entire country all at once. So what took us 10 years to systematically develop into inside of the United States is about to be dwarfed by that expansion. And one thing I want to talk about, mention by that systematic expansion into the States, is because of the way that we expanded across the US, we still have less than 1% market share in the majority of our markets. The entire New England corridor from Maine down to Virginia is wide open with less than 2% market penetration. You've got Illinois, Ohio, you've got parts of Indiana, you've got these incredible states that are open with tiny market penetrations. And the reason is we just haven't had those markets very long. We haven't had much of an opportunity to get into those. So Ambit's sitting here as a $1.3 billion company with over 1 million happy customers on the service, right, that are executing. We're still picking up market share like mad all across the country because we offer an incredible service with incredible co-founders that decided, like we said, to be the finest and most respected retail energy provider in the nation. They decided to do that by never sacrificing integrity for growth. They've stuck to that, and that's why we continue to pick up market penetration at an alarming rate. So we're going to watch these markets in the United States continue to increase in market penetration and continue to increase in market share. But on Saturday, they basically told us that here in a couple of months, they're going to unleash us immediately up on what is pretty much the entire Japanese country. Now, there are going to be places that you can't offer the service, obviously, like the United States. There are certain areas that you can't go, but they basically opened up to us a market size, if you combine it all, that is over $70 billion in annual revenue and over 80 million potential customers. So basically, if you look at the number of customers that we currently have access to in the United States versus what we're about to have access to in Japan, this company just doubled in the amount of markets that we're going to be able to pick up, the amount of customers that we're going to be able to pick up. Now, what's really exciting is I had a personal conversation with Chris Chambliss and Jerry Thompson a couple days ago at our event, and Jerry told me a couple things that were interesting, and so did Chris. Number one, Chris told me that we're basically going to have access to the entire country whenever it opens up. So potentially you could see a lot of customers, you know, basically have the ability to become Ambit Energy customers. But Jerry Thompson said something to me that's really interesting. He said, Jordan, when we launched Ambit Energy, we only had one territory. We just had the state of Texas. When we launched, we only had 2 people that we actually launched the business with. It was just a couple of leaders that, you know, trusted us enough to go out and build organizations. So starting with 2 people in one state, we did $1 million in revenue our first year. In our second year, we did $44 million in annual revenue. So this is Jerry Thompson, the CEO, telling me this. And I was like, man, that's really amazing. And then he looked back at me in his cool hand Luke kind of way, because that's how Jerry Thompson Jr. is. And he said, Jordan, Japan is 10 times larger than the Texas market. And we're getting the whole thing out of the gate. So my head kind of flies back like, whoa, that just hit me, that we're going to have so much more territory just there than we had in the beginning. And then he said, and we're not just starting with 2 people. Look at all the resources that we have to connect with people who might be interested in developing a part-time or a full-time income living in the Japanese market currently. And those 2 things absolutely blew my mind, guys, because we're going to have the opportunity to expand into Japan, but it's not just going to be a couple of people spearheading it. It's going to be an army of people that's already been developed inside of the US that are seeking out individuals that might be interested in developing an income in Japan. So the thing is, here's what I want to tell you about all this as we close. You are in front of what is going to be the greatest redistribution of wealth we are ever going to see in American history or global history. Ambit has just shown a propensity in the first 10 years to go after deregulated opportunities as they came available, state by state by state. Now, 10 years in, having just put $20 million in infrastructure into our IT department, it looks to me like they are getting ready for international takeover, baby. So what are we looking at? We're jumping the ocean. We're going to Japan. We're opening a $70 billion market with 80 million potential customers. And that's just step 1. Who knows what else they have up their sleeve? They didn't tell us about this one. You know what I'm saying? So what I'm seeing is a company that expanded systematically state by state by state and got into 16 different states inside the US. It went over $1 billion in annual revenue in less than 7 years. It's got over 1 million happy customers on the service that has already entered. I know we're in 16 states, but if you look at it, we've actually entered about 90 different electricity and natural gas markets. Guys, they've already done this 90 times. They're getting really good at it. Really good at it. And now they've just shown us the propensity to jump the ocean and do that kind of number. I am so pumped. I feel like my head is going to explode. So I want you guys to just understand what we've got our hands on, okay? We've got a company that for the first 10 years did that. But now, for the next 10 years, they're going to be aggressively pursuing any opportunity that becomes available. And that's not just, you know, outside the U.S. There's still opportunity inside the U.S. Nevada and that entire state just voted 72% of their population voted for deregulation. It looks like behind Nevada, you could see Arizona and California electricity domino on top of that being inside of the US. And if you go a little bit further, you'll see that not just American markets are deregulated. Japan is deregulating. Australia is deregulating. New Zealand's deregulating. Parts of Canada are deregulated. Western Europe is deregulating. You're in a place where deregulation is a global trend. It's not just an American trend, it's a global trend. And this is about to go haywire. It's going to go off the chain. We're already doubling our potential customers, basically doubling our potential revenue. Oh, and by the way, electricity deregulated in April of last year in Japan, so it's only been open for a few months. Most people haven't even switched yet, number one. Number two, they're talking about deregulating natural gas this April. And none of those projections and none of those numbers and none of that stuff talks about the addition of a natural gas customer that can come on in Japan. So guys, I am just so fired up. I literally don't know if I'm going to be able to sleep for the next few months or maybe even the next couple of years. You know, sometimes people talk to us about Ambit and they have never really heard of it. So they go, oh yeah, Ambient. I know what you're talking about. Ambient is a sleeping drug. It's a sleeping pill that's prescribed to people that can't sleep. Guys, I might need to get on some of that stuff. I'm going to need some Ambient for my Ambit because I'm not going to be able to sleep. This is totally out of control, off the chain. So this isn't a normal close. I'm not going to go into the 5 points that make everything that we do amazing. You know, it's electricity and natural gas. It's a product. It's not a service. It's a product. There are all these incredible things that you can say about Ambit Energy, but here's the message I want to bring to you. You have seen takeover inside of the US. Every market we go into, we start to get market penetration immediately. You know why? Because there are people out there that are looking to save money. There are people out there that are looking to make money, either on a part-time basis or a full-time basis. Americans are looking for ways to put more money back into their bank accounts and to keep more money into their bank accounts. They're excited about increasing their financial portfolio. And this opportunity that you've just seen tonight, in my opinion, is the absolute #1 best, most dynamic way to keep some money in your pocket and make some money that you're ever going to see in your entire lifetime. And I can say that straight up because this company is totally out of control. So I just want to thank you for being here tonight. I want to thank you for watching the 15-minute presentation. I want to thank Sean and Damien for putting that all together. You know, if it wasn't for them, the video that you saw tonight wouldn't have even existed. And they've been an incredible resource to a lot of people across the country. And now they're going to be an incredible resource to people all over the world. I'm excited about what we're going to do with this thing over the next 10 years. And the only question you have to ask yourself right now is, do you want to be a part of that? Do you want to have the opportunity to be paid on electricity and natural gas bills, not just in the United States of America, but all over the world? If the answer to that question is yes, then I would strongly encourage you to get with the person who showed you the video that you just watched. Look back at him and say, I don't know what that kid is talking about fully because he's totally out of control and he's kind of loud, but I definitely know that I want to be paid on electricity and natural gas bills all over the country and all over the world. Get me hooked up with a C number, set me up with my suite of websites so I can get out there and start making some money. Guys, my name's Jordan Buckingham. I'm really proud to be here. One last announcement as we finish up this video. Executive consultant, Perseverance Award winner, Glenda Farmer is going to be on the telecast next week, okay? Next Tuesday night, she's going to be there. And I know you guys got an email that it was going to be her tonight, but her and I are really good friends. As a matter of fact, I'm in her organization on her 4th level. So her and I, speak very often. And she messaged me earlier and said, Jordan, oh my God, I have a big presentation that I'm the closing speaker tonight. And I was like, what time is it? She was like, the same time as the presentation that Sean is doing. So I said, well, they're just going to have to settle for little old me tonight so I can give them a message. But understand that Glenda Farmer is one of the most dynamic, incredible women I've ever met in my life. She's built a huge team of people all across the country. Hell, I'm in her organization. So she's got a great organization of people. And I do want to give one more shout out to a great friend of mine. Thank you so much for Steve Thompson, who shared the opportunity with Sean and Damien Pekacek, that shared the opportunity with some more people, that share the opportunity with more people. And eventually that came down the line and found me and my father and my family. So I'm just really grateful for Steve Thompson for making this available, for being the resource behind EnergyGoldRush as well to make this all possible. So guys, that's the end of the broadcast tonight. I love you. I'm fired up about this opportunity. If there's anything that I can do to help you and you're sitting with a leader that has my personal phone number, feel free to reach out in a call or a text message or an email, and I'll do anything I can to help you in your business. Everybody have a super evening, and let's go out and make some money and take over the world. Thanks for being on, and we'll talk to you soon.